When we talk about rebuilding ourselves, the very first step always begins with awareness. Imagine trying to repair or redesign a house without first examining its foundation, walls, and structure. You would be building blindly, and sooner or later, that structure would collapse again. The same is true in life. Before we can rebuild who we are, we must first see ourselves clearly as we are right now. Self-awareness is the ability to notice your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, and the patterns that quietly run your life. It is about shining a light into the corners of your mind that often remain hidden in the shadows. The truth is, most of us live without stopping to notice what we are truly feeling or why we are behaving a certain way. We wake up, we move through our routines, and we carry on with the day as though life is just something happening to us. But without awareness, we become prisoners of our own automatic patterns. For example, when you feel angry or frustrated, do you ever pause to ask yourself why? Or do you simply react without questioning whether that reaction serves you or harms you? Self-awareness gives us that pause, that space to reflect before we act. It is not just about knowing your strengths. It is also about being honest with yourself about your weaknesses. Awareness is about courage, the courage to face the parts of yourself you may not be proud of, the honesty to admit where you've been avoiding responsibility, and the willingness to see where your current habits are leading you. Many people resist self-awareness because it can be uncomfortable. Looking in the mirror of truth often shows us patterns we would rather ignore. But ignoring them never changes anything. Only by seeing them clearly can we begin to transform them. Developing this awareness begins with simple practices. Journaling, for example, is a powerful tool. When you write down your thoughts at the end of the day, you begin to see recurring themes. You may notice that certain situations always trigger stress, or that particular people always leave you drained. Without writing, these patterns stay hidden, but once they are visible, you can start making conscious choices. Another practice is mindfulness or meditation. Sitting quietly for even 5 minutes a day and noticing your thoughts teaches you something essential. You are not your thoughts, you are the observer of them. And if you are the observer, that means you have the power to choose which thoughts to believe and which ones to let go. Awareness also applies to the words you speak. Every word we say shapes our identity and influences how others see us. People who constantly say, "I'm always unlucky," or "I can't do this," are reinforcing a belief about themselves that limits their potential. But most of the time, they are not even aware they are doing it. Becoming aware of your language is like catching yourself in the act of shaping your future. Once you hear the negative words, you can replace them with empowering ones. Instead of saying, "I can't," you begin to say, "I'm learning." That small shift can change the way you experience challenges. In relationships, awareness plays an equally powerful role. Think about how often conflicts escalate simply because neither side is aware of what is really being triggered within them. Maybe the argument is not about the words spoken in the moment, but about a deeper wound from the past. When you are aware of your emotional triggers, you stop blaming others for your reactions. You begin to take responsibility for how you feel and how you respond. That responsibility is not a burden, it is freedom. It means you are no longer controlled by your past or by other people's behavior. There is also an important connection between self-awareness and growth. You cannot change what you cannot see. Imagine trying to correct your posture without a mirror. You would not know whether your back is straight or bent. Self-awareness acts as that mirror for your mind and behavior. It shows you what needs to be corrected. Without it, even if you work hard, you might be moving in the wrong direction. With it, every effort you make becomes focused and intentional. Ultimately, awareness is not about judging yourself. It is about understanding yourself. It is about compassion, not criticism. When you truly become aware of your patterns, you realize that many of them were simply habits picked up from your environment, your upbringing, or past experiences. They do not define you. They are simply programs that can be rewritten. Awareness gives you the pen to rewrite those programs. So if you truly want to rebuild yourself, start by observing yourself. Pay attention to your thoughts, notice your emotions, listen to the words you speak, and reflect on the choices you make each day. Awareness is the doorway to transformation. Once you open that door, every step forward becomes a conscious step, not a blind stumble. It is only when you see yourself clearly that you can begin the powerful process of becoming the person you were always meant to be. One of the greatest challenges in rebuilding yourself is breaking free from the patterns that have quietly controlled your life for years. Human beings are creatures of habit. We repeat the same routines, think the same thoughts, and surround ourselves with the same influences day after day, often without realizing it. These patterns become comfortable, even when they are destructive, because familiarity feels safer than change. But if the goal is to rebuild yourself, then you must learn to break those old patterns, because what got you here will not get you to the next stage of your life. Think about your daily life. From the moment you wake up, most of your actions are habits, not conscious choices. Maybe you reach for your phone and scroll for half an hour before even getting out of bed. Maybe you grab unhealthy food because it's easier than preparing something nourishing. Perhaps you complain about your circumstances instead of asking how you can improve them. These small choices may not seem important in the moment, but together they form the patterns that shape your destiny. If you continue repeating them, your future will look exactly like your past. Change begins when you recognize these cycles and make the decision to break them. Breaking patterns is not only about habit, it is also about beliefs. Many people carry invisible beliefs that hold them back. Maybe you've been telling yourself, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never succeed because people like me don't get those opportunities." These are not truths. They are stories you've been repeating so often that they feel real. The problem is, every time you act according to those beliefs, you reinforce them. To break the pattern, you must challenge those beliefs and replace them with empowering ones. The moment you say, "I am capable," and back it up with action, you begin to write a new story for yourself. Sometimes the patterns we need to break come from our environment. Look around at the people you spend time with. Are they lifting you up, or are they pulling you back into the same cycle? It is very hard to grow when you are constantly surrounded by negativity, gossip, or people who do not believe in change. If your environment is toxic, it will eventually shape you to match it. Breaking old patterns may mean stepping away from certain people, changing your surroundings, or setting boundaries that protect your growth. This is not an act of rejection, it is an act of self-preservation. You cannot rebuild yourself while standing in the rubble of the same old environment. It's important to understand that breaking patterns is uncomfortable at first. Your mind is wired to resist change because it craves certainty. That is why so many people abandon their goals. After a few days, they mistake discomfort for failure. But discomfort is not failure. It is evidence that you are breaking away from what is familiar. When you feel resistance, remind yourself that this is the sign of growth. You are teaching your brain and body that there is a new way to live, and with repetition, what once felt difficult will eventually become your new normal. One powerful way to break a pattern is through conscious interruption. The moment you notice yourself slipping into an old behavior, stop and choose differently. For example, if you are about to react in anger, pause, take a breath, and respond calmly. If you are tempted to procrastinate, stand up, change your environment, and do one small action toward your goal. Each time you interrupt an old cycle, you weaken its power over you. Over time, these interruptions become your new patterns, and those positive choices compound into massive transformation. Another key to breaking patterns is replacing them with something constructive. It is not enough to stop doing what doesn't serve you. You must fill that space with new behaviors that push you forward. If you stop wasting hours on distractions, use that time to read, exercise, learn a new skill, or build meaningful relationships. If you step away from negative conversations, replace them with discussions that inspire and challenge you. Every time you remove something that weakens you, replace it with something that strengthens you. That is how you build momentum toward the life you want. Ultimately, breaking old patterns is about reclaiming control of your life. It is choosing not to be a prisoner of your past, your habits, or your environment. It is saying, I refuse to live the same story again and again. Once you break free from these cycles, you create space for something new to emerge. That is where rebuilding truly begins, not in perfection, but in the courage to leave behind what no longer serves you. The truth is, change is possible for anyone who is willing to disrupt the old and embrace the new. Your patterns are not permanent, they are choices repeated over time. And if they are choices, that means you always have the power to choose differently. So, when life gives you the opportunity to grow, don't hesitate. Break the patterns, rewrite the story, and step boldly into the version of yourself you were always meant to become. When a person decides to rebuild their life, clarity becomes the compass. Without a vision of where you want to go, even the strongest effort can lead you in circles. Respond with patience, it rewards direction. Imagine strategic killing, a house without first drawing the design. You might end up with walls, windows, and doors, but they won't come together in a way that makes sense. The same is true for your life. Vision is the blueprint that guides your actions, and discipline is the daily commitment that brings that vision into reality. Too often, people live reactively. They respond to circumstances, they chase whatever appears in front of them, and they settle for whatever is left over. But when you live without vision, you drift. Days turn into months, months into years, and suddenly you wonder why nothing has changed. A clear vision is the answer to that drift. It pulls you forward. It gives you something to wake up for, something to fight for, something to commit to when the journey becomes hard. A powerful vision is not just about material success. It's about asking yourself deeper questions. Who do I want to become? What kind of values do I want to live by? How do I want people to experience me? What kind of impact do I want to leave behind? When you answer these questions honestly, your vision stops being about shallow goals and starts becoming about identity, purpose, and contribution. That kind of vision creates energy, because it connects you to something bigger than yourself. But a vision alone is not enough. Dreams without discipline remain dreams. Discipline is what transforms desire into achievement. It is the quiet commitment to take consistent action, even when you don't feel like it, even when nobody is watching. Discipline means showing up for your health, your learning, your goals, not once in a while, but every single day. It means saying no to distractions and yes to the future you want to build. Think about how progress works in nature. A tree doesn't grow to full height in a single day. It grows a little each day, sometimes so slowly you can't even notice. But with time, it becomes strong, unshakable, and towering. Your life is the same. Discipline may feel slow in the moment, but over time, it builds results that are undeniable. Every book you read, every workout you complete, every skill you practice, every moment you spend improving yourself, these are the daily deposits into the bank of your future. Discipline also teaches you resilience. There will be days when things don't go as planned. You will feel tired, discouraged, or even defeated. Without discipline, it's easy to quit when progress doesn't come quickly, but with discipline, you learn to stay the course. You remind yourself that setbacks are temporary, that consistency is more powerful than intensity, and that small steps taken daily are more important than giant leaps taken once in a while. The most successful people are not necessarily the most talented. They are the most consistent. They align their vision with their habits. They may not always feel motivated, but they practice discipline until discipline becomes second nature. For them, working on their goals is not a burden, it's simply who they are, and that is the power of discipline. It turns effort into identity. To create this combination of vision and discipline in your life, Start by defining your destination as clearly as possible. Write it down, imagine it vividly, speak about it as if it's already real. Then break it down into small, achievable actions you can take every day. Don't overwhelm yourself with everything at once. Focus on progress, not perfection. If your vision is to be healthier, discipline might mean walking 20 minutes a day to begin with. If your vision is to be financially free, discipline might mean saving a small percentage of your income consistently. If your vision is to grow mentally, discipline might mean reading a few pages daily. The steps may look small, but over time, they create transformation. Remember, vision gives you a reason to move, but discipline gives you the power to arrive. One without the other is incomplete. Vision without discipline is fantasy, and discipline without vision is wasted effort. But when you combine both, you become unstoppable. You move with clarity, and you act with persistence. You stop being controlled by circumstances and start becoming the architect of your own future. So when you decide to rebuild yourself, do not just ask, "What do I want?" Ask also, "What am I willing to commit to every single day?" Because in the end, it is not what you imagine that shapes your life, it is what you consistently do. With vision as your guide and discipline as your tool, there is no limit to what you can create. Knowledge by itself is never enough to change a life. Ideas are powerful, but without action, they remain locked away, unrealized, and useless. Many people know what they should do. They know they should take care of their health, invest in their growth, work on their relationships, or pursue their goals. Yet knowing does not transform anything. It is the doing that makes the difference. Empowerment comes the moment you step beyond thinking and start moving. Real growth is built on action, not intention. Too often, people wait for the perfect moment before taking a step. They say they will begin when they feel ready, when they have more time, or when circumstances align. But here is the truth. The perfect moment never arrives. Life does not wait for us to be ready. Opportunities pass, time slips away, and hesitation turns dreams into regrets. Empowerment begins when you take imperfect action now, with whatever resources you have, wherever you are. It is not about waiting, it is about starting. Action has a powerful way of building confidence. When you remain stuck in thought, your doubts grow louder. You imagine failure, you magnify obstacles, and fear multiplies in your mind. But the moment you take a step, however small, your perspective shifts. Fear loses its grip, and confidence begins to grow. Think of it like climbing a staircase in the dark. From the bottom, you can't see the whole path, but when you take the first step, the next one becomes visible. That is what action does. It reveals the way forward one step at a time. Another reason action is so transformative is because it creates momentum. Momentum is the invisible force that makes progress easier as you keep moving. When you stop, inertia pulls you back into old habits. But when you act consistently, your actions begin to feed each other. Small wins build into bigger wins, and progress compounds over time. For example, the discipline of exercising once may feel like a struggle, but when repeated consistently, it becomes a habit. The habit then fuels energy, energy fuels productivity, and productivity fuels confidence. All of this begins with the simple decision to act. Taking action also teaches you through experience in a way that no book or lecture ever can. Knowledge without application remains theory. But when you act, even if you fail, you gain wisdom. You discover what works, what doesn't, and how to improve. Every step forward becomes feedback, and feedback accelerates growth. Many people fear failure so much that they never act at all, not realizing that failure is not the opposite of success. It is the foundation of it. Every successful person you admire has failed repeatedly, but they acted anyway. The difference is that they saw failure as feedback, not as the end. One of the most empowering realizations you can have is that action is always within your control. You cannot control every outcome, and you cannot control how others will respond, but you can always control what you choose to do next. That is where true empowerment lies. Instead of waiting for circumstances to change, you become the one who initiates change. Instead of being passive, you become proactive. Instead of being a victim of life, you become the author of it. Action is also the bridge between vision and reality. You can imagine the life you want, you can visualize success, and you can plan in great detail, but none of it matters until you take that first step. A plan without action is a wish. Vision without execution is fantasy. The bridge is built when you act consistently and intentionally. It doesn't matter if the step is small, what matters is that it is taken. Because once the first step is taken, the next one becomes easier. The beauty of action is that it does not require perfection, it only requires movement. You don't need to know everything to start a business, you need to take the first step. You don't need to have the perfect workout plan, you need to move your body today. You don't need to have every detail of your life figured out. You need to take one action that brings you closer to your vision. Progress comes from accumulation, not from one grand gesture. Empowerment, then, is not something given to you by others. It is something you give to yourself through action. Every time you act, you prove to yourself that you are capable. You rewrite the story in your mind from I can't to I just did. You stop waiting for life to happen and start creating it. And when you look back, you realize that the life you built wasn't made of one massive leap, but of countless small, consistent actions taken day after day. So if you want to rebuild yourself, start by acting. Do not wait until you feel fearless. Act despite the fear. Do not wait until everything is perfect. Act with what you have. Do not wait for permission. Give it to yourself. Because in the end, empowerment is not about knowing the path, it is about walking it. And the moment you take that first step, you begin to discover just how powerful you really are.